Hey guys, Balta1995 here, watching launch of Vega on VV05.
And 55 minutes. I would like to thank warmly the European Commission and the European Space Agency in charge of Copernicus Space Component for entrusting Arianespace with the launch of this new satellite. At the eve of COP21, Arianespace is proud to contribute to endeavors such as Copernicus, which will enable to better protect our environment based on accurate and comprehensive Earth monitoring data. This contribution is within the core of our primary mission: provide European institutions with guaranteed and independent access to space, with Vega tonight, as we did with Soyuz in March for Galileo and with Ariane 5 in April for SICRAT 2. But the fifth Vega is now being readied for launch, so enjoy the show.
Wherever you may be, and welcome once again to Kourou, the home of the Ariane family, for today's launch of Vega. We're coming to you live, as we always do, from the Jupiter Mission Control Center. Jupiter is the heart of the space base. It's the center of all the action, and there's plenty of action coming up, so we hope you'll stay with us. We're very pleased to see with us here on hand all of our friends and VIPs and invited guests who are here to enjoy the evening with us. And we want to say a special hello to our friends at ESOC, the European Space Operations Center in Darmstadt, back in Europe. You're up very early. All of you can follow the broadcast in English with me, or in French with my friend Pierre Junior, who's up there in the broadcast booth. Hello, Pierre. Very good. We're going to start off by a close-up look at the Vega launcher. Some of you may not be familiar with her. She's flown 4 times before, all very successfully. Vega is a 4-stage solid and liquid propellant vehicle. The first 3 stages run on a solid system, and the 4th on a liquid propellant system. The 4th stage is also reignitable. That's an important detail, and we'll see that in action later on. We will also come back and describe each stage in turn as it is functioning. Vega is used for small satellites. By small, we mean smaller than those carried by Ariane or Soyuz, the other members of the Ariane family. Vega is used for satellites in the 1 to 2 ton class, extending access to space for what we call mini or micro satellites, roughly in the 1 and 2 ton class, as I said. And you saw Sentinal 2A weighing in at 1 ton plus. Some of the key players who make the mission happen: this is the Flight Directorate, led by Stefan Israel, you saw. With him, Louis Laurent from Arianespace, the Senior VP for Programs. Representing ESA, the European Space Agency, Stefano Bianchi, the Program Manager for Vega. Also for Arianespace, Edward Perez, the Chief Technical Officer, the living technical memory of all the flights going back to 1979 and the beginnings of Ariane. And rounding out the team is Patrick Loire, who is the head of Arianespace Kourou facilities. Anything unexpected coming up tonight, these gentlemen will be on the phones making the decision what to do about it. We're very happy to have with us Volker Liebig, Director of Earth Observation Programs for the European Space Agency. Welcome to you. We want to speak a bit about Sentinel and about Copernicus. Can we start with Copernicus? Europe's eyes on the planet Earth. That's the program made up of the Sentinel fleet. Can you tell us a little bit about Copernicus?
Well, Copernicus, or with Copernicus, we try to do today what we have done about 35 years ago in metrology, to build up a satellite-based monitoring system, but this time for the environment and civil security and not for metrology.
All right, Sentinel now. There are going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, 6 pairs of Sentinel satellites in the Copernicus fleet. Is that right?
It's in general right. We have 6 Sentinels, but not all are satellites, because some are instruments which will fly on EUMETSAT satellites. But at least the first 3 and the 6 are real satellites, and they will be launched until, let's say, 24 months from now.
All right, even more specifically, let's look at Sentinel-2A tonight. What are its major applications, would you say? By applications, I mean, what are we targeting?
Well, in less than 35 years, so mid of the century, we have to nurture 9 billion people on this planet. And so one of the objectives is to measure growth of plants, agriculture, how will be the next harvest, but also to support farmers in getting a better productivity. Another one is connected maybe also to the climate summit we will have in Paris this year, the COP21. We can monitor forests, rainforests, but also boreal forests. City planning is another issue. There are many applications. One more which I would like to mention is that after disasters we are able to make rapid maps. So there is a service of the European Union which produces within hours maps, for example, after an earthquake like we had it in Nepal this year.
All right, last question, because we're already running out of time, unfortunately. What can you tell us about what's new on the satellite? I've heard about some spectral elements. What I think people will want to know about. That's the most interesting part of the satellite, I think.
The satellite was designed that we can scan the whole Earth with the twins, because it will be 2 satellites, A and B, within 5 days. This is one of the issues. And the other one is that we have added to the classically visible channels, infrared channels. We speak of the red edge, because this is a reflection where we can measure the plant health and fertility. And this is a very important parameter.
All right, that's all the time we have, I'm afraid. Thank you, Volker. Volker is going to take his seat here. I'm going to make my way back up to the broadcast booth. While we're doing that, we'll give you a chance to look at a film. It's on the launcher campaign. You can see how Vega has been put together. Take a look. We'll be back.
Like all parts of the family of European launchers, Vega's separate stages come to Kourou by ship. When they arrive, they begin what's called the launcher campaign. The stages are put together vertically. On April 20th, the first stage, called the P-80, moved from the booster integration building to the launch site and onto its launch table. The second stage, called the Zefiro 23, was brought horizontally from the preparation building where it had been stored, then hoisted atop the P-80. The procedure is the same for the third stage, the Zefiro 9, which was placed on the Zefiro 23. The fourth stage, called the Avoum, was integrated atop the rest of the launcher. The satellites launched by Vega also have their own preparation campaign. Sentinel-2A arrived by air on April 21st. It was transferred to its preparation building, called S5, where it underwent the necessary tests. Then it was placed in a container and moved to the nearby fueling building, where it was filled with propellant. These operations all take place in special clean rooms here at the space base. The satellite was placed on its adapter, then encapsulated in the fairing 9 days later. These operations are all monitored by operational teams on the ground. The now full composite was then transferred to the launch zone on June 11th, where it was mated atop the Vega launcher. The tanks of the Avum upper stage were then filled with its storable propellant. Then came the last preparations, like the final pressurization of the upper stage. After a launch rehearsal and a final inspection, the launcher was now ready for the final countdown.
The targeted orbit is a Sun-synchronous one with a worldly altitude of 800 km and a liftoff time at 1 hour and 52 minutes AM in universal time coordinated. The total mass at liftoff is 137 tons compared to the required performance of 1.2 tons, with an average thrust of 2,200 kN after the first stage PAT ignition. During the first phases of flight, the solid booster stage PAT, Zefiro 23 and Zefiro 9, will be tracked by the telemeasure ground station Galileo over a duration of 6 minutes. Due to safety aspects, these 3 stages will re-enter on the seas. The last stage, integrating a liquid engine named Avum, will reach a transfer orbit after a first boost duration of 9 minutes. This boost will be tracked by Bermude and Saint-Hubert ground stations. In order to circularize the final orbit, a second boost of 2 minutes will occur under Perth station, visibility after a long intermediate ballistic phase of 35 minutes. Once the targeted orbit reach, Sentinel 2A will be released after approximately 55 minutes of flight.
Back in the broadcast booth, Joshua Jampel here again. You can see the green status panels on the right telling the story. The panels are a go, no-go, red-green summary of everything it takes to launch and fly Vega from the base. And you can see we're on time and we're on target all as well. Guido Levrini's here with us. Guido is Copernicus Space Segment Program Manager for ESA. We're very glad to have you commenting this important event for you. Welcome.
Thank you, Jos, and good evening. And good evening to all those who are listening, and a special greetings to our colleagues and friends back in Europe who have elected not to sleep tonight.
Vega's fifth flight, the 265th launch for Arianespace going up tonight. Sentinel 2A is the 52nd Earth observation satellite launched by the company. Most of Vega's launches, by most I mean 80% concern this type of satellite. Big market for that. Launch time, liftoff time, 10:51. The mission will last about an hour. Our cameras are here in Jupiter mainly, but there are other places where people are hard at work, you can imagine. This is the Vega Launch Management Center. The control center is in the same building as the Ariane 5 control center up there. Mission control provided from the same Jupiter building where we are tonight, the one used for Ariane and Soyuz launches. We are about 14 kilometers away here in Jupiter. These men and women up there are only about 3 kilometers from the pad, but not to worry, they are protected inside a blockhouse, the walls of which are about 1 meter, if not 2 meters thick, I'm told. What's going on with your satellite now?
The satellite is sitting quietly on top of the launcher. It's ready for the journey of a lifetime, and now it has been disconnected quite some few minutes ago from the external power and is on its own internal power, on its own batteries, and everything is fine with the satellite at the moment. Her
maiden voyage, Vega's, was in February of 2012, her second in May of 2013, the third in April last year with an Earth observation satellite for Kazakhstan, the fourth mission last February using ESA's re-entry vehicle. All successful missions, as we mentioned, and all confirming or qualifying different aspects of the launch vehicle, which is the youngest member of the Ariane family. You had a picture of the launch pad a moment ago. That's an old Ariane pad. That's the old Ariane 1 pad called ELA-1, which was dismantled in 1991. You're going to hear the DDO, this man, call out the 1-minute mark.
À tous de DDO. Attention pour moins une minute.
This is a Norwegian Njanha tonight.
Top. H0, moins une minute.
All right, we are in the final 60 seconds of our launch tonight. Sentinel 2A, the people in the hall are going to make their way out to the balcony. What's going through your mind right now? Your baby's on the pad, about to go.
You really think of all the people that have worked alongside with you to put this mission together. Your colleagues in industry, at ESA, and in partners organizations, CNES, DLR, the European Commission. It's a real team effort.
Tonight, in just 30 seconds, we're going to cut away, we're going to let you listen to the DDO, who's going to call out the final moments of the final countdown, and we'll be back when Vega has cleared the tower. Final countdown.
Attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Top. Allumage et décollage vers 05. Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Moving through the clouds, off like a shot. You saw Vega rise like an arrow, surprisingly fast if you're used to watching Ariane 5.
Acquisition de la télémesure lanceur par la station de Saint-Jean-du-Maroni.
My friend Guido here pumped his fist in the air when he saw her rise. Were you aware you were doing that? That's terrific. Those of you who were following the Ariane flights know that the heavier launcher rises much more slowly. The DDO is saying everything is normal. Ariane 5 weighs over 6 times what Vega does, carries 4 times as much propellant. She lifted off perfectly from French Guiana, beginning the 5th mission in her young career. She weighs now at liftoff 136 tons. They call her the light launcher, but she's not really as light as all that, 136 tons after all. The first stage burning now, weighing 97 tons, 88 tons of that are fuel. The first stage will burn its single engine for about 2 minutes before being jettisoned. All is normal on board. The first stage produced in Colleferro near Rome. The Italians leading this project, then delivered to the French Guiana propellant plant here where it's loaded with fuel, and it's then transferred to the booster integration building. You saw some of those shots in the launch campaign film we had just before beginning there. The upper segment of the Ariane 5 booster is also loaded in Colleferro, same place, same teams. The DDO has called out the separation of the first stage, also called the P80, and you can see we've had ignition of the second stage, which is called the Z23, Z4 Zefiro. We're in the second stage burn now. The second stage, the Zefiro 23, will burn its solid rocket fuel for 86 seconds. It weighs 25 tons and 23 tons are fuel. What's the satellite doing now?
At the moment, the satellite is, we say, enjoying the ride, although it is a relatively rough ride to reach its position in orbit. And it's a sun-synchronous orbit. Sun-synchronous means that we are this evening launching towards north, towards a polar orbit, an orbit which goes over the poles, and it's an orbit that, while the Earth is rotating beneath the satellite. Good news. Beneath the satellite orbital plane, it covers the whole Earth. The final destination is about 800 kilometers altitude, 786. And the orbit is called sun-synchronous because a given point on the Earth's surface is seen always at the same local time.
And the altitude is more or less 800 kilometers?
786. This is the final destination, and we are on our way to it.
The sun-synchronous or polar orbit, different from the geostationary transfer orbit where the majority of telecom satellites go, which is the usual Ariane mission, which goes east, although Ariane can be used for this launch as well. So sun-synchronous orbit.
Yes, and we will cross the equator at 10:30 local time.
All right, you saw right on time separation of the Zefiro 23 stage, the second stage, and we are awaiting ignition, there we have it, you saw in the cartoon, of the third stage, which is another Zefiro stage called Zefiro 9. Now you see the fairing has been jettisoned. Why do we jettison the fairing right now?
Now we are outside the atmosphere. The altitude, you see it on the left low corner of the screen. There is no more atmosphere, and therefore we get rid of some weight, and Sentinel 2A starts to get a taste of space.
You can see she's exposed. That's the upper right-hand box on the right-hand side of your screen. So she's exposed to the elements now because, as Guido said, we don't need the protection anymore. We have just a minute, and just want to give you a taste of Vega's history. It's quite interesting. Vega grew out of an early U.S. missile called Scout.
Le pilotage est calme, les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Everything is normal, says the DDO. Scout launched originally from Wallops Island, that's off Virginia on the east coast of U.S. In 1992, production of Scout was going to be closed down, but the project continued as an Italian venture. These are the origins of Vega, called the San Marco Scout, led by, guess who, ASI, the Italian Space Agency, and Avio, the two major players in what became Vega. They launched from a platform called San Marco also, which is also the name of Italy's first satellite, by the way. San Marco off the coast of Kenya, an equatorial zone, just like Kourou is on the equator, launched between 1964 and 1988, a total of 27 times.
And while the Italians continued with Scout, a separate Italian project, which was called Zefiro, was developing bigger boosters with a new technology based on carbon fiber winding. This Zefiro became the backbone of Vega and then was used in its ultimate design as the second and third stage engines. This was based on a new series of Zefiro rocket motors and finally named Vega, Vettore Europeo di Generazione Avanzata, or Advanced Generation European Vehicle. And the development of Vega is an ESA program which we are very proud of. The prime contractor you mentioned is ELV, a joint venture between Avio, based in Colleferro, and the Italian Space Agency.
The first four Vega flights all tested a different configuration of the new launcher. The first flight carried a special, rather complicated payload and platform, and the second flight tested the carrying structure, so we can have an additional passenger. The third tested a single satellite with an adapter, and the fourth flight early this year, the new re-entry system.
We had 4 full successes in a row, a truly unique record for a new launcher.
And as you saw, the separation of the Zefiro 9, the third stage, coming right on time and on target at 176 kilometers up. You can see our speed on the bottom right of your screen. The speed we need for injecting a satellite is what, between 8 and 9?
Yes.
Kilometers?
Yes. Per second. These are not kilometers per hour.
Not per hour, yeah. Important point. Okay, now we've had confirmation of the third stage separation, and we are waiting confirmation of the ignition of the upper stage. The upper stage is, as we mentioned before, the liquid propellant system. It's called the AVUM, A-V-U-M, which means...
Fin de visibilité par station de Galileo, acquisition de la télémesure lanceur par la station de Bermude.
We're being picked up by our downrange tracking station in Bermuda, the DDO says. AVUM, Attitude and Vernier Upper Module. What's a Vernier?
Vernier is a synonym of precision, and it refers to the precision which is required by the upper stage. And this because the AVUM is designed to deliver different payloads in completely different orbit and
Premier allumage de l'étage supérieur AVUM.
And perform satellite fine pointing before separating the satellite. So this is why we're using liquid propulsion for this specific module.
Because the solid propulsion is basically raw power to get us away from the pull of the Earth,
and it's
right?
less precise.
And less precise. And this is for precision pointing. Good. You noticed we did not have ignition of the AVUM upper stage immediately following separation of the third stage. The reason is we delayed the ignition for about a minute because we had a loss of what they call visibility. That means the signal. It's quite normal that this happens, no problem. The Galileo downrange tracking station here lost the launcher's signal, and the station in the Bermudas, the following one, had not yet picked it up. So we wanted the stations to see. That's the explanation there. How long, I'm going to ask you how long you've been working on the project, but first we're going to go up to another place where things are happening tonight. This is the Real-Time Visual Control Center located just behind us in Jupiter. Their facilities are atop a hill called the Montagne des Pères, the Mountain of the Fathers. These teams are analyzing right now all the data as it comes in from the ground stations along Vega's flight paths. We're mentioning Bermudas and these other stations. These data are treated to reconstitute the entire mission. That's what's going on up there. Now, my question to you is, how long have you been working on this project? Long time.
This project was kicked off in 2007. The mission will be born today, but and we continue for 12 years. It will be followed by Sentinel 2B next year, and we are already starting right now the development of the next pair, 2C and 2D, who will replace Sentinel 2. Sentinel family, as Volker Liebig has just said, is specifically designed to target one of the aspects of the overall Earth ecosystem, to give us a full picture.
We're going to get a full picture from the first of two ESA films now. One, the first on Sentinel 2A. Back with more in a moment.
Sentinel 2A, the latest satellite of the environmental Copernicus program, is at the Centre Spatial Guionnais in Kourou, where it's being prepared for its launch. Combining high-resolution and novel multispectral capabilities, Sentinel 2A has a mass of 1,140 kilos, is 3.4 meters long and 1.8 meters wide.
It has 13 spectral channels, like to analyze 13 different nuances of colors when taking an image of Earth. It has a swath, which is the area of observation, which reaches 300 kilometers. Okay? And the spatial resolution, which may seem relatively modest, 10 meters in the current case, is actually quite high given the number of channels and the width of the swath for the imagery.
The Sentinel-2 mission is based on a constellation of two satellites, both orbiting Earth on a polar sun-synchronous orbit at an altitude of 786 kilometers. The satellites offer color vision of Earth, and their configuration optimizes coverage and global revisit times, allowing the provision of a wide portfolio of services.
The utilization is that there are different services making use of the data. The one that is going to be served with priority with Sentinel-2 data is the land service. And the land service is, for example, looking at the land cover. For example, agricultural coverage, forest coverage, but also not only at the state at this point in time, but looking at longer time frames. And with Sentinel-2A and B, we will have a long time frame, so we can look at changes that happen on the Earth. There's also an emergency service, and also here the Sentinel-2 satellite can bring valuable data before a disaster that happens, but then also can map after a disaster has happened, so you can do the comparison.
Once launched, the European Commission will assume ownership of the Sentinel satellites through the Copernicus program. It will provide services for a range of different applications such as air quality forecasting, flood warnings, or early detection of drought and desertification.
The land service is the basis. It will provide data on the land use, on forests, on water bodies, the amount of soil sealing, and it has lots of environmental applications. So we are looking forward to improving the monitoring of the environment, which was one of the main objectives why Copernicus was created.
Like Sentinel-1A, Sentinel-2A will be launched aboard Vega. Sentinel-2B will follow in 2016. This will be the 5th launch of a Vega from French Guiana.
And you've seen some of the key people which are a little bit the symbol of this project. François Poteau, who is the project manager right from the beginning, spent the last 8 years of his professional career on this project, and Bianca Herschel.
As did you.
Yes,
I may say.
And many others. They are really the symbol of the several thousand people that have worked on that. And Bianca Hirsch is the one who will take over the mission management starting from 3 months after launch.
Our next film up now is on Airbus Defence and Space, the builders of Sentinel-2A.
Sentinel 2A is the 112th Airbus Defence and Space satellite launched by Ariane, built by the company or by its predecessor, Astrium. And there are currently 11 more Airbus satellites in the Ariane space backlog.
Indeed. Let me take this opportunity to thank Airbus Defence and Space and all the companies of the consortium. There are more than 50 that have contributed to allow us to be here today. This was indeed a very challenging industrial and technological development. Can I mention one symbolic number?
Sure.
Extinction du premier boost AVOM.
Just before you do, you can see the first AVOM burn cutoff coming right on time, 16 minutes, 14 seconds.
Great. Josh, you can interrupt me anytime with good news, please. I would like to mention just one number, which is a little bit symbolic. The image camera has about 400,000 pixels. This means it has 100 times more pixels than the latest high-definition TV that you may have if you have a 4K TV.
Good, that's a very telling figure. We are moving into a coasting phase. Coasting is needed after a burn before separation. And our cameras are moving over to ESOC. ESOC, the control center. ESA's outpost in Darmstadt. Now what's happening there? What are we looking at?
We are looking at the Mission Control Center in ESOC, the Satellite Operations Center, for this mission and many other ESA missions, of course. They're very busy in doing a lot of, carrying out a lot of activities, reception of the telemetry, check out of the parameters, follow-up of the trajectory. These are the people that from separation onwards will be in charge.
Stabilisation des attitudes pour la phase balistique.
Will be in charge of the satellite, will take control of the satellite, perform the maneuver, look after the health check, and so forth. So this is where the action will move very soon, immediately after separation.
So when the Vega mission is over, these people start going to work, or are they already at work?
They're already at work, but it's true. They will take control of the satellite and keep it for 12 years.
12 years, good. Okay. We are going to go to a launch replay, I do believe, the first of several of the liftoff, where you can relive those exciting moments you first saw moments ago. That's just one. We have cameras at other observation sites, and we'll be passing those along to you shortly. We haven't, Guido, talked much about Copernicus. What's special about Copernicus for the ordinary user, I mean, for the ordinary man or woman in the street? Another replay first, and then you can tell us. This is from another vantage point.
Panne de visibilité normale du lanceur par la station de Saint-Hubert.
We have 6 or 7 observation posts here at the space base. Cameras in all of them. Nice shots. 19 minutes ago, Vega took off. All right, you were saying?
Yes.
Copernicus.
So what's special about Copernicus? Copernicus is special because we are transiting from being capable of taking an image here and there, being capable of extracting information from the image to build us a continuous surveillance system. And on top of that, it's a system that looks at the environment in all its aspects and not just one only. If this is not enough, we are the first one in the world, Europe is the first one in the world to accomplish this. So we are leading, we are not just, it's leadership. Clearly mentioned this. We are working on an issue which is the scarcity of the resources, which is the single most important political issues for the next generation.
Right, very true.
Looking at the scarcity of food, the topics which are particularly important due to the increased pressure, due to the growth of population. Issues which are at the service of policymakers as well as in support to monitoring the enforcement of the various international treaties, such as what may be concluded at the end of this year and the COP21 Paris Climate Conference.
Have you got a final point? Because we have to cut away.
Of course.
Briefly.
It's a very good financial investment. For every euro invested, you get 10 euro back in economic growth.
All right. Very good message. Okay, and on that message, we're going to leave you for about 26 minutes while Vega orbits the Earth in what they call a ballistics phase. The pictures will continue to tell the story in real time, but our commentary will resume in about plus 46 minutes roughly. We'll see you here back then.
I'll pause recording until then.
We're here with Guido Lavrini of ESA. We hope you enjoyed the interlude and continued to follow the progress of Vega and her passenger, Sentinel 2A, which have been perfect. All is well, all continues to be well on board. We're in the final moments of the mission. We're heading towards separation of the satellite. If you just joined us, the story so far is the following. We had successful liftoff of Vega on time at 22:51 local, 3:51 a.m. Europe. The first, second, third, and fourth stages all burned perfectly. That's the whole story. We'll go to a replay, and we'll be back with some more. Again, if you've forgotten what that liftoff looked like, the shots may remind you. Guido, you were down in the fishbowl during the blackout.
Yes.
Collecting information, talking to people. What's the mood down there?
The mood is great. The teams are very concentrated and very high spirit, pleased by the perfect progress so far. But of course, this is also intense moment for sure. So it's it's a little bit like running the Olympics. You prepare yourself for years, and now this is the moment. The moment has come.
That's a very apt analogy, I think, because tonight is the fruit of work for you. It's 8 years. For many other people, it's 8 years, or many months, or.
It's a long journey. It's a long journey.
And that's normal when you're developing a satellite program, I guess. There's no way you can build a satellite in a month.
Any complex project requires long efforts and personal sacrifice, and this is the night.
In our second ESA film, you'll learn all about the Copernicus services.
In Innsbruck, Austria, as part of the environmental Copernicus program managed by the European Union, products and applications using Sentinel-1 data have already been developed by the company Geoville. The company works mainly on operational land monitoring and on the emergency management service.
The services are concretely, first of course, the automatic processing of the satellite data, the integration of in situ data, and then the transformation of this data into intelligent geoinformation. With intelligent geoinformation, we mean maps, we mean statistics, we mean analytical reports. In the end, very often it's just one number or a few numbers, but these numbers help decision makers to better understand how Europe is changing, how our planet is actually changing through environmental impacts.
New ESA satellites provide data to support very high-resolution images, and the advanced processing techniques that are using a range of satellite data yield extremely accurate maps of our planet.
So what you can see here on the screen is the first ever Sentinel-1 derived flood map. It was actually used by the Department of Water Affairs of Namibia, and it was processed by them through the Water Observation Information System that was implemented and developed by the European Space Agency. And the data is being used for the monthly flood reporting, also to warn the population, and most importantly, this kind of data is used to plan mitigation measures and build the kind of infrastructures that are needed in the future to protect the population from floods.
The Sentinel family long-term observations provide information that will be used by policymakers, scientists, and also research teams. At the Technical University of Vienna, the soil moisture measurements from space are part of the research.
The Sentinel program is a really very impressive program. In my view, it's the most advanced and most impressive program globally. We expect that the synergy between the different Sentinel satellites will allow us to improve the scientific quality of the algorithms. We want to go, for example, for the soil moisture product to even higher spatial resolution, for example, to go to 100 meters. in pixel size. And if we do this, the land surface becomes more complex, so we need more data from other satellites to have a more detailed descriptions of the land surface. So our plan is that we start merging the Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data for the retrieval.
Development of products and services downstream from Copernicus are expected to serve numerous needs, from local to transnational. Once in orbit, the Sentinel satellites are the property of the European Commission, and their data are freely available, paving the way for a wide range of applications and services in the future.
Nice testimonial there in the film from the fellow from the Vienna University of Technology.
Yes, indeed, you have seen some of the users, some of the managers of the Copernicus systems, the Copernicus services, sorry. And Jos, I can't help but underlying, they were saying Copernicus the most impressive system.
I heard that.
If a demanding user says that, it means we're doing something right. And they said about synergy among the various Sentinels, and this is essential. We are just not launching in space 1, 2,
Deuxième
or
allumage de l'étage supérieur Avum.
DDO has confirmed the second Avum ignition coming right on time, 51 minutes 46 seconds, altitude 791
La propulsion
kilometers.
est nominale. Le pilotage est calme.
So this is what's unique about the
we are not just launching satellites in space, we are putting together a complete system.
La trajectoire est nominale.
You're going to go to your film.
Very good, yes.
Yeah. On the S2 project manager, we're going to hear from Francois Spoto.
That's good.
Following separation of Sentinel-2A from Vega, which will be monitored from the station of Perth, located in Australia, the software on board the spacecraft will automatically trigger the deployment of the solar array, and the satellite will take care itself about its thermal control and will start acquiring enough accurate pointing, such as when the satellite will enter in visibility from the second ground station, which is Stroll in Antarctica, ESOC, which is the operational center on ESA, will be able to give to us in Jupiter a feedback about the overall health of the spacecraft and give already a feedback on preliminary success of the mission. Of course, verifying the satellite step by step, as we intend to do, will take much more time. The in-orbit verification will take 1 month, and 2 months in addition will be necessary to characterize and optimize the performance of the payload instrument. So we can only envisage to deliver some routine operations 3 months after the launch.
You've heard Francois talking about already what's next after this evening, these famous 3 months where we're going to work hard in calibrating the instrument, validating the products to guarantee their quality.
3 months of normal time, long time, short time?
It's very short time. It's a very challenging task.
We're coming up on separation of our passenger. You see the extinction of the Avum. Sentinel-2A ready to be separated. 5443 is the number. All eyes concentrated here in Jupiter. Very focused moment. People here have gone through this before. May I ask you what's going through your mind?
It's difficult to express. Like any achievement, you need to be able to overcome a lot of setbacks and difficult moments. Now that I've flashback movie of this 8 years.
The 8 years.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Waiting for the separation now.
We'll have the DDO confirming. Well, there is the good news. Vega has apparently successfully separated her passenger Sentinel-2A. However, before we can start ringing the victory bells, we need a full confirmation. You can see how that happens, the separation. She's pushed away from the mothership by a series of springs. Now, we're waiting for confirmation. You better explain why we have to wait for confirmation.
This is a very crucial phase. A number of things have to happen. The first point, we have to monitor separation, and this can be done, is done in 2 ways. From the launcher side, we have just heard it, and this can be seen also from the satellite side, therefore from ESOC.
When you say can be seen, you're talking...
Séparation du satellite confirmée par le projet Sentinel 2.
Voilà.
Acquisition de la porteuse bande est du satellite
au-dessus de la station sol
Perse 2 de l'ESOC.
Ah, so that was our confirmation that we were waiting for.
Yes.
It came immediately.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's terrific. And you heard the applause. That's great. So that's the good news. So what happens now? ESOC starts working.
ESOC starts working. We make sure that we are on the good orbit. Then we have to do a very important job, which is to open our solar array, to deploy the solar array.
A single solar array.
There is one. And this is very important because the satellite is, since a little bit more than an hour, on its own internal power, on the charged batteries. So this is essential. And last but not least, we need to run a health check of all the system and subsystem on board to see that the satellite is fully healthy after this rough but memorable ride.
All right, so we've had our confirmation, which came relatively early. We have the good news. Vega's mission will be over, but our show will not be over because we're going to have the traditional post-launch speeches coming up. They're the ESOC people again, picking up their information. And it's from them that we got the confirmation, you said.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to be hearing from Stefan Israel, of course, Arianespace chairman. And
Wait, about
who's this?
That was
we see the mission director.